So typically I would say a blurb on like the history of the franchise or the game, relate the game to the real world, or tell you a little story about my personal history with the game or the franchise. But I just did that with the Gears of War Judgment video. In an effort to not be redundant, I'm not going to do that this time. If you want to hear a short history of the Gears of War franchise and my personal experience with it, and a killer review to boot, check out my Gears of War Judgment video. I'll have it linked in the description below. With that out of the way, let's just really jump right into it, and let's talk about Gears of War 4. Gears of War 4 was developed by the Coalition and published by Microsoft Studios. It was released on October 11th, 2016 for Xbox One and PC. I played on PC through PC Game Pass and recorded my footage through AMD Adrenalin, so all footage you are seeing is from that. And with me playing this on PC, of course I played some on my Lenovo Legion Go. I capped the frame rate at 60 and pushed the settings down to medium when I was playing on that, and it ran pretty okay. There was one spot in particular where it was kind of chugging along at like, I don't know, maybe like less than 10 frames a second, but there was a lot going on, and I was not surprised it was chugging along quite a bit for that little bit. But then after that, it was perfectly okay, so frame rate 60, settings medium, perfectly playable 99% of the time on the Lenovo Legion Go. Gears of War 4 takes place 25 years after the events of Gears 3. You play as James J.D. Phoenix. As James, you break into a COG ran town to steal some resources for your camp of outsiders, a group of people who disagree with how the COG have been running the planet of Sera ever since the Locusts were all killed, and the Emulsion was eradicated. After retrieving said supplies and while fixing up the camp one night, the settlement is attacked by creatures of unknown origins. With the camp being largely wiped out and supporting character Kate's mom being kidnapped by the creatures, JD, Kate, and their friend Dell have no idea what they are up against and seek help from an old COG soldier who might know the enemy they face better than anyone else, James's dad, Marcus Phoenix. So with this being the first Gears of War game I played that wasn't from the Xbox 360 era, the very first thing that stuck out to me was how good this game looks being made for more powerful hardware, and I think that was even amplified by me playing on the PC version. I use a Ryzen 9 5900X and an AMD Power Color Red Devil Radeon 6750 XT in my PC, so not a high-end PC by any means, but it's not exactly a slouch. And with me playing the PC version, I had a bit more liberty with the settings than on console version. I played with an unlimited frame rate and settings on high, and I was averaging like 140 to 150 FPS. So combine the higher frame rate with upgraded graphics that come with the console generation leap, you get Gears of War 4 being by far the best looking Gears game I have played up to this point, and it's not even close, honestly. Speaking of things looking good, real quick, Bearded Marcus over Soul Patch Marcus every day of the week. But along those lines, Marcus was my favorite character in this game. In previous Gears games, he's a bit of a grizzled, war-hardened ex-convict. He shows some signs of humanity for sure, but he's largely a monotone character. I feel like Gears of War 4 really fleshed him out more and made him more human, not so much an emotionless killing machine. You kind of get a glimpse of how he was as a father to JD, as well as almost a father figure for Dell and Kate as well at times. Which is a good thing I didn't really mind the characters since there's going to be a sequel. That is clear now, obviously, with Gears 5 being out. But in 2016, when Gears 4 was new, they still knew there was going to be a Gears 5 because 4 ends very much alluding to a sequel and on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I'm not a huge fan of because it ends pretty abruptly, which is not a good thing. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it is just a very abrupt ending. It's so abrupt, I didn't even think I was done when I finished the game. The final cutscene started and I was like, oh man, where's it gonna go from here? And then it just ended and I was like, oh, I guess I'm done. I would have liked for a more impactful or thoughtful ending, especially since I got big vibes of them trying to channel a moment from a prior Gears game. Would have liked to see a more original ending that takes more time and didn't allude to a sequel. Calling your shot and making it clear you are planning a sequel is one of my biggest pet peeves. There's nothing wrong with planning for a sequel from the start. I just hate it when it's so obvious when the game ends. Something else I thought was weak was the opening of the game. Like I said, a bulk of the game takes place long after Gears 3, and Gears 3 concluded with essentially the end of the war between the COG and the Locusts. But in the opening of the game, you play a few minutes of battles from earlier in the war, and I don't see a lot of purpose in this. Once those sections are done, they are never referenced again, especially since the characters you play as are never referenced again in the story of the game, mainly because you just play as generic soldiers, but that's besides the point. I feel like they could have had a stronger opening to the game. But let's end on a couple high notes here, so let's talk about the weapons in Gears 4, particularly the new ones. The Gears of War franchise is home to so many iconic guns that include, but are not limited to, the Lancer, Gnasher shotgun, Torque bow, and the Long shot. Typically, when a new installment of a shooter franchise rolls around, some new guns are introduced, and Gears 4 is no different. And I really like the guns they introduced in this installment. Particularly, I was a big fan of the Tri-Shot and the Overkill, a minigun type thing and a new shotgun, respectively. Those are only two examples, but there are a multitude of new guns introduced into this game, and I don't think a single one doesn't belong. They are all worthwhile introductions, and along those lines, it was nice to see an old weapon wheel, quote-unquote, make a return. Typically in Gears of War games, weapons are tied to the D-pad, and you hit a direction to select a gun. Left and right are your primary guns, down is your pistol, and up is your grenades. In Judgment, it got switched to a more traditional 2-weapon, press Y to switch, and press LB for grenades style system. This honestly didn't bother me at all, so I never mentioned it in that review, but after using the classic Gears weapon system, it was a nice little nostalgia hit for me. Last point I want to discuss is kind of a minor one, no spoilers. The ending of the game puts you in a position where you have to do a lot of destruction and tear down a lot of things. And I was pretty impressed with how good the destruction looked and felt during this sequence. By no means is it on the same level of like the Finals or Red Faction Guerrilla, but this is not trying to be like those games. This game has virtually no destruction prior to this. Actually, from what I can remember, the whole series barely has any destruction. So to see some pretty solid destruction mechanics come out of nowhere for this section was just kind of a pleasant little surprise, and I was decently impressed. So is Gears 4 worth playing? Most definitely, but does it add anything significant to the formula? Not really. It adds a few guns and continues the story we all know, but doesn't do anything super different. But I think that's fine, not only because I know Gears 5 mixes it up a bit, but almost because Gears of War is a comfort series for me. I know what I'm getting into to an extent, I like that. It's something I can just turn my mind off and enjoy. I believe the beauty of these games lie in their simplicity. Many people love the Gears games for what they are. I'm still looking forward to getting into Gears of War 5, but as far as my time with Gears 4 is concerned, it was time well spent.
Got it! Who's next?
TLDR, Gears 4 is more Gears, but I like that. Quick little short video today, because, I didn't have that preamble that I usually do. But thank you again for watching. I appreciate your time and attention. Don't forget to watch that Gears of War Judgment video I mentioned that I have linked in the description if you want me to talk about more of the Gear franchise. Next up, I am finally going to play Halo Infinite. This is the only Halo campaign I haven't played, so it is high time I get through this one, especially since with how much I've been talking about, I'll do it on the channel. I'm very much looking forward to playing it and making a video about it, so make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss that video or any food videos that I'd put out. Lastly, let's talk Gears of War in the comments. Any thoughts on the franchise you may have, or any thoughts on Xbox, especially with the recent announcement of Call of Duty coming to Game Pass. If you guys want to talk about that, wouldn't be opposed. Let's talk about it. Thanks again for watching this quick little game review, and I'll see you in the next one.